Hello everybody, so today we're going to learn about Roman numeral or chordal analysis, making up the fundamental pieces of music. Here we have an example in C major, and we're going to see how this simple example of music can be related to any other type of music. What we're going to do today is take each of these chords and assign them a number so that we can see the relationship between the chords in the piece. So what we're actually going to start out with is just establishing that this is in C major. We know it's in C major because there are no sharps or flats in the key signature itself. There's also no accidentals, so it's a pretty surefire guess that this piece is in C major, and we will reestablish that later through our analysis. So what we're actually going to do first is build triads. The reason we build triads is because most of music is actually built up off chords, and what happens is each chord is given a number. So we're going to actually start by doing that. We're going to put that to the side. Here we have a treble clef, and I am going to, or a treble staff, and I'm going to actually start with each note itself in the C major scale. So we start on a C. We have C, D, E, F, G, A, B. I'd give C, but we already have a C down here. That'll be more than sufficient. So what we have to do to build each number is to build a triad or a seventh chord. We're going to start with triads off of each of the bass notes. So the first scale degree, the C chord looks like C, E, and G. We're going to assign this the number 1 over it. Grab a new pen, the number 1. The reason it is a capital letter, capital Roman numeral 1, is because it's a major chord, a C, E, and a G, having a major third in between the first two intervals and a minor third in between the top. We're going to continue this process to analyze all of the chords within the C major scale that are naturally occurring. Alright, so we have a D. To build a triad, we have the D, the F, and the A, and we're going to assign that the 2. And a minor 2 because there's a minor third between the first interval and a major third in between the second. And we're going to continue this process. E, G, B. That's a minor 3 chord, being that there is a minor third and a major third stacked on top of one another. We're going to do the same with F, giving us a major 4 chord. We're actually going to just say 5 here for a second. For the 7th chord, we're going to move on to the A. A, C, E is a minor triad, so we're going to give it a minor 6 as its chord name. And last but not least, the 7, B, D, and F, gives us a diminished 7 chord as there are 2 minor thirds being stacked on top of one another. To give the 7th chord symbol, what we're going to do is just put a little, 7 for the 7, and a little circle on top, notating that it's diminished. So what we're going to do with the 5 chord, we all know that the leading tone tends toward the first scale degree. In this case, the leading tone is B. However, in these kind of chords, we also have these, the 4th of the chord, or Fa, or the T being the leading tone, the subdominant chord note, tends to go down to the mediant. And so what we're going to do is go ahead and make this a 7th chord, because that way it has the leading tone and the subdominant note that are tending towards going to 2 notes in the 1 chord. So that's the reason that we have it as a 5-7 chord. So I'm going to label this, it's a major 5 chord, and the 7th being minor, as it's not naturally occurring in the key of G, but it is in the key of C, so we're going to give it a 7 on the top. So what we have here is the basic chords that create a C major, any sort of C major song. If you have a song with accidentals, we get into secondary functions, but what we have here are the naturally occurring chords in C major. What we're actually going to take a look at really quickly is how these translate to composition and as to what they're used for. So when we hear a 1 chord, it's the base of the scale. It tells you what kind of a key you're in, whether you're in major or minor. Here, as you can see, we're in major keys because the tonic chord is major. this formula of the 1 being major, the 4 being major, the 5 being major, these 3 here being minor, and the 7 being diminished is the formula that you're going to find for any sort of major scale. So if I were to have transposed this into D major, keeping in mind that there is an F and a C sharp, we would have still had the same kind of pattern occur. So what this is showing us is that all music is based off these fundamental chords, all major music. So when we compose, what we're going to do is think about what chords lead to each other. So if we have, for example, a 1 chord, a 4 chord, and a 5 chord, we know that the 5 chord consists the leading tone in the piece, which is the 7, the 7th scale degree in this case, which is B, so we have a B in here, or even in the 7 chord, we have a B in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the 1 chord and then the 5 chord, or even the 7 diminished chord, because it leads back to the 1, and that's always where you want to go back to. So when you're writing parts, it's very beneficial to have Roman numeral analysis on your side so you can see where the tendency of the pitch is to go. We're going to talk about one more thing before we get to our practical example, and that is the inversions. So when we invert a chord, we have, for the triads, we have 2 kinds of inversions. We have root position, which is how you see the chords now. We have first inversion, where the bottom note is the 3rd of the chord, and a first inversion chord, I'll show you here on the side, is going to be notated by the symbol for the chord, and then a 6, that's first inversion. And to notate second inversion, where the 3rd note of the triad is on the bottom, we have 6 and 4 to notate that the G, for example, in the 1 chord is on the bottom. It's a little bit different, so here are the inversions. Label that, inversions. And this helps a little bit with voice leading. So for example, if you're going to put a 5 chord and you want the B on the bottom, it's nice to be able to invert that chord so you can have the BB on the bottom or even the BB on the top, which is nice to lead back up to the C in the soprano voice. So what we're going to have here is the 5-7 chord. The only difference is that you can invert the 5-7 chord 3 times. So the triads would go 1, 2 times before it would have the bass note back on the bottom. Here what we're going to do, we could invert it 1, 2, 3 times before the bass note is back on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and write those special inversions. So we have the 5-7, that would be root position. We have the 5-6-5, and that occurs when the 3rd of the chord is on the bottom. We have the 5-4-3, when the 3rd of the chord is on the or the 5th of the chord is on the bottom. I'm sorry, the 5th of the chord being on the bottom, being inverted 2 times. And then we have the 5-4-2 occurring when the 7th of the chord is on the bottom of the chord. So these are all the fundamentals you need to analyze a piece, and what we're going to do is go ahead and finish the analysis of the piece now. So here we have our example, and this is extremely quick and easy with the information that we already have. So in the first chord, knowing we're in C major, we have a C, an E, a C, and a G, which occurs in the 1 chord as shown here. So we should put a 1 there, and being in a root position, because the C is on the bottom, we don't have to label anything. The next chord has a C, an E, a C, and an A. And if we look over here, that occurs in the 6th chord, so C, E, C, A. And since a C is on the bottom in that chord, it's going to be first inversion, so we're going to label it with a 6. So we have a 6 chord. And we are going to continue these in the next video since we're running out of time just a little bit. So here we go.